The Taco Bell's decade menu is back, and this time it's focused on that crazy time period that we called Y2K. If you or a loved one experienced emotional distress due to slow internet 25 years ago, Taco Bell believes you're entitled to a delicious escape. With Taco Bell's decades Y2K menu, you get five faves like the cool ranch Doritos Locos Taco, caramel apple empanada, chili cheese burrito, 7-layer burrito, or double decker taco, all for $3 or less. You already suffered dial up. Don't wait any longer. Experience Taco Bell's Decades Y2K menu now. Also, don't forget to add on a $7 Buffs box with four Taco Bell classics and a collectible CU Player Cup featuring Jordan Seaton, Juju Lewis, Draylon Miller, or Quentin Gibson. And we want to shout out Taco Bell because every time CU scores a touchdown this year, Taco Bell will help support CU athletics with a $1,000 donation to the Golden Buffaloes Scholarship Fund. Live Moss at Taco Bell. All right, welcome in to a new BuffStampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com, joined, as I always am on Sunday, by football analyst William Gardner. William, there were no Buffs to watch and see, play a game this weekend. What would you do with your bye week?
Oh, we just took it easy a little bit. Went down to a wild animal refuge and got out of town. I don't know, relaxed.
What kind of animals did you see out there?
They got to sound like Wizard of Oz, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my!
Okay.
Wolves, alpacas, horses, wild horses.
Okay.
Yaks.
Nice.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Spent some time in Kansas, and it's a good place to just kind of catch your breath,
Yeah. Not
There's some what's that?
Not a lot else to do in Kansas.
But sometimes I like that,
Yeah.
especially the older I get in life. So just a little R&R with some family. So that was good. Let's touch on a variety of topics, kind of just catch our breath really with the football season and take a look back, take a look forward. If anybody has questions out there, drop them into the chat and we'll definitely get to them. I think we have a couple on our message board that we'll get to. Just let's start out broad topic here, William. How do you view the current state of the CU football program here during the bye week?
Well, I guess you got to take it whether we're talking just the current in season or a longer term. I think in season remains to be seen. I think there's still a possibility, I think there's still a good possibility to get bowl eligible and possibly more than that. So I think it's all right in the short term, given that we lost so many guys to the NFL and it's kind of a rebuilding year. I think we all wanted more, but I think there's a possibility based on what we've seen recently of this year ending up pretty well. And I think in the longer term, I think it looks pretty good. You look at the number of really young guys that are playing now that hopefully will still be here. Next year, of course, it's never a given, but we got a pretty good base of guys that have played a lot of football so far. I mean, Michael Welch and Joseph Williams, Draylon Miller. They just kind of go down a list of guys. We got the basis of a pretty good offensive line coming back next year. So there's a lot there, a lot coming back. Three good young defensive linemen. So I don't know. I think it looks pretty good. The recruiting looks pretty solid at this point. So I think the overall picture of CU football is pretty good.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because I think you picked them to go 9-3, right?
Yeah.
Was your preseason prediction? I said 8-4, and I really don't feel like that was a dumb prediction. I really don't. And so that's the frustrating part of it when you look at this season, and it's tough to get past that. Of course, the Iowa State did a little bit in terms of removing some of that bad taste. And you go out to Utah this coming Saturday and win, and then all of a sudden it opens the door for a really fun month of November for this football team. But you lose that game, you got to go 3-1 in November just to get bowl eligible, which to me was the floor for this football team. I said that very confidently. It's fallen in more in line, Colorado's win-loss record, with what the odds makers thought was going to be the case, kind of a borderline 5-6 win team. And so that part of it's been disappointing because I mean, you play this over again, and maybe it would help to figure out the quarterback situation a little earlier. But I still think that this has the talent to be an 8-win football team.
Yeah, and I think the odds makers are full of crap as usual. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They can shove it up their backside because
it's all computers at this point.
Well,
For the most part.
All the talking head know-it-all clowns, popping all that stuff out there. You look at. I'm just going back through our schedule, and not a moral victory guy much, but I'm just trying to count up. We've lost to 4 teams, and between them, they've lost 2 games. So, and they've all been close games except one. Could have been a play here, player there. We're that close to being, 7 games now, 6 wins, something like that. Now that doesn't count for much at the end of the day, but we're a better team than any of these jackwagons outside of Boulder think we are. So half the jackwagons in Boulder don't know how good we are. But we're playing good teams. We got a rough schedule, and doesn't get any easier next week. But this is a pretty solid team, really. You lose a Heisman Trophy winner, an NFL draft pick, a quarterback, and 3 NFL receivers, and got off to a kind of slow start figuring out who we are. But I think we have a chance to still have a pretty special season.
Dano put in the chat, growth, it will be a lot faster with an update at OC. And then we got a question on our message board talking about whether it's too early to start talking about coaching changes potentially coming up. I think it is, even with Pat Shurmur at this point.
Well,
you just gotta let the 5 games play out, or at least the next few.
Yeah. Well, I mean, given what happened at Iowa State, which was a pretty good outcome, I think you got to ride with what you got for now and see what happens after a 2-week layoff and playing at Utah. But I think 24 against Iowa State's not great, but we won that game and we looked a lot better in the second half. So if they can learn something from it and carry it over to this week, I think it is too early to be talking about it. I think at the end of the season there needs to be a very thorough reckoning of all this coaching staff, and I don't know that it needs to be torn all the way down, but some of those spots got to be changed, but not right at this moment.
By the way, this is just going to be a 2-man show today. I did a show with Sean Niehoff during the bye week. We'll bring him back on in the future when we've got a game to recap. And then Will Burnett, I'm sure he's tuned into the NFL games right now. I'm going to film a really short segment with him after all the Buffs in the NFL have played. That way we can get a recap of it. I don't know if you saw this, William, but Travis Hunter, over 100 yards receiving this morning over in London, scored his first NFL touchdown. So that was really cool to see. It was a blowout loss for the Jaguars, but great to see them kind of figuring out how to use Travis Hunter. He had a nice game. I think they targeted him 12 or 13 times in the game.
Yeah, and he'll grow and get better each week, and each season. I mean, he's just touching I don't know, the foundation of his abilities. I think he's going to do really big things over the years. So,
yeah. Going back to the current Buffs, the most disappointing performance has got to be Houston so far, right?
Yeah, well, that was the only one, and I think you look at that and you think about all the quarterback stuff kind of going on in that game, and we didn't do anything offensively, which didn't help our defense, but it wasn't really a good game either way around. But if you only have one of those games a season, that's not too bad, frankly. And I think Houston's turning out to be pretty good. They're 6-1 now, with their only loss being to Texas Tech. So that being said, our conference there's a couple of good teams and a lot of really bad teams. So I don't know. That one's disappointing that we didn't show up better, but I think we've improved each week.
Doesn't it feel like they're gonna keep catching teams when they're hot too? Like, Arizona's better than we thought they were going to be. Arizona State just upset Texas Tech. They got some momentum. Going out to Manhattan, Kansas at the end of the season, that's not going to be a pleasant atmosphere. They're going to sell that place out regardless of what their record is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you're looking, if we're going to go ahead and talk about the schedule, I think that, Arizona looks to me to be really bad, and I don't see any reason to think that they're looking any better. That I think they were
Well,
off
Fafita's definitely better than he was a year ago when they faced
yeah,
off against them. They're a tougher team than what they faced down in Tucson last year.
yeah, but they're 4-3, and their 4 wins are against garbage. So I mean, they lost big to Iowa State, um, pushed BYU to a couple of overtimes, and lost to Houston yesterday. So I don't know. It's this conference is tricky. Every year
Mm-hmm.
halfway through the season, you still don't know what the hell you got in this conference. Because
Yeah.
you're playing all these teams, and we're all playing the same teams, and it's hard to tell who's really good until the end of the season, really. But I don't see anything from Arizona that looks all that great to me. I think they caught BYU looking ahead, and they got them at home. Um, and lost to Houston, was a little closer than us, but I don't know. They're 4-3, but man, if we played their schedule, we'd be 5-2. I think. Well, I think we'd be 6-1, but
Yeah.
against that schedule, because
You mentioned how well the teams that Colorado's played so far this season have done. Do you take some solace when you see, Georgia Tech's undefeated and you see BYU knock off Utah? Does that make you feel a little less negative about, pre-bye week, just the overall win-loss record?
Well, it makes me feel a little frustrated actually, because it's like the only one every single one of those games we were within a play of winning, and took them down to the wire. So it's kind of frustrating that we're playing all these undefeated teams down to the wire, and with a play here or a play there, we could have won those. So
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I think TCU wasn't all that close, but I don't know. I just think that if we'd have played the second half, you see this season, a quarter here and a half there. For the second half we played at Iowa State would have beat any of these teams on our schedule if we played 4 quarters of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's
What
there.
uh, what was the best performance? Is it clearly Iowa State?
Yeah, I think Iowa State was the second half was the most fun. The first half wasn't all that great. I think that was a fun game the way it played out, and I think we were, I don't know, at any given moment in that game, I think we were a play here or there from blowing that one open, but they probably feel differently. I don't know. So I don't know. It's a little bit disappointing and frustrating to me at this point to be where we are. But I think we get this team to bowl eligibility and we keep things rolling. That's not too bad. That's not too bad of an outcome, I guess, after what we lost from last year. And I think Coach Prime needs to learn a few things and do some things different this offseason.
Yeah, 6 wins would be huge from a perception standpoint, no doubt. I think there would be Colorado fans that might be frustrated, feeling like this is, like we talked about earlier, a team that's capable of winning 8, 9 games from a talent standpoint.
Right.
But from a national perception standpoint, you lose Shador and Travis and win 6 games after them. That's going to be the talking point, and
Yeah.
that's gonna create a lot of momentum, not only from the portal, but high school recruiting and going into next year's recruiting class as well, because obviously that timetable is so accelerated now that you're getting a lot of these kids to commit before they begin their senior season. So that's as big a reason why they need to get bowl eligible as any, right? Is just kind
Yeah.
of building for the future in that sense.
Well, and you also, you need to be able to say to kids you're recruiting that this program works and this concept works, and we're just rebuilding after losing a lot of players in one year. And we're still only in the third season away from being the worst team in college football, so it's still kind of miraculous, frankly. And I think at this point you can sell to kids that we're competitive with everybody we play, and so you can look at guys and say you're the difference. You could be the difference between us, especially at some positions, a couple of positions on defense at linebacker, and I really think the difference on offense is the new offensive coordinator knows what the hell he's doing. But I think there's a lot to sell in this program, and I think you have to wonder too how much Coach Prime missing so much because of his medical issues impacted this team. And some people say, well, they're all professionals, did their job, blah blah blah. But when you don't have the head guy there, it makes a difference.
It's hard to say. Unless you ran a simulation where you had him in Mulder, it's hard to say. I think you might have gotten a few more commits on board early on, just because you know it makes sense. You want to be able to meet the head coach before you're going to commit to a school. Crazy thing is, they still did pull in some commits without Coach Prime being on campus, but maybe that would have been one area that would have been a little bit more beneficial. But really, parts of those stretches where he was back in Texas are the times when he would have been back in Texas anyway, because that's kind of the downtime for a lot of coaches. So
some of, but I think given the gravity of what he was facing, I think that he couldn't really have his mind in the coaching game as much as he wanted to, probably. And I don't know how much, we always had meetings in the off season, and maybe he had more time to spend with the coordinators or whatever. I don't know, but I think it has an impact on some level, and how much, there's really no way to say.
So are the Buffs clearly trending up after that Iowa State game, or do we need to see another performance like that to feel like they've turned the corner as a program this season?
No, I think it needs to continue this week at Utah. I don't think one half of a football game is trending up. We had 2 losses before that, and then the first quarter wasn't that good, but that second half was really good. But even not playing that great in the first half, we were right with them all the way through and beat a ranked team. So I don't know. In the short term, it's trending up, but you got to follow it up with something else. It's like football is always the same, man. One game doesn't mean a hell of a lot. It all depends on what you put after it.
Yeah. You suggested a topic here. What players have shown they will blow up in the last 5 games? Maybe more if they get bowl eligible. I got 2 names popped in my head initially. You give me one, and then we'll go back and forth with some different guys we think are set to blow up here.
Okay, well, the guy that's really started playing the way I expected him to play from the start of the season is Amari McNeil, and I think his last couple of games he's played at an all-conference level, and if he keeps that up, that fourth down stop against Iowa State was just a thing of beauty. And if he plays like that every damn play, man, he's going to get some All-American mention, because the guy is damn good. So I think Amari McNeil has turned a corner, and hopefully will be something really big in the second half.
Me and Big Mike are on the same page. He said number 44, and that's London Merritt. And this is something that the coaches have talked about, that he's so much more polished than most pass rushers coming in, where they just keep going back to that speed move. London Merritt, actually, he loves the power moves in there as well. And so I think he's primed to have one of those games where he breaks off a couple sacks and has a big impact here down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm gonna name his bookend, Alexander McPherson, who I think has done more than Merritt so far, and the guy plays with reckless abandon like I've not seen in a long damn time. And I think he's been a half a second away from several sacks, I think, the first half of the season. And now that they've had a half of the year to kind of learn technique and things like that, I think he and Merritt together are going to just really turn things up in this second half. So I think Alexander McPherson for sure.
Offensively, the first name that came into my mind, and this is somebody that blew up in the last game, is Joseph Williams. I feel like he is their most consistent wide receiver. And I think that Salter is really starting to develop some chemistry and trust in him.
Yeah, and I love that he's only a sophomore, and there's so much more ahead of him. And I think he's been our best receiver all year. He was the best guy all summer, I thought, and now he's starting to do those things in games and really starting to impact games. I'm trying to think which of the guys last year he most reminds me of, and I'm not really sure, because he seems to have better route skills, and he's kind of got a little bit of who was the tall receiver last year? They were just looking at me like I'm talking.
Well, Javon Antonio was 2 years ago. I'm trying to think of who you're talking about from last year.
From last year, the had the long touchdown down the middle, diving catch, transfer in last year. Anyway, I think he combines the attributes of several of those guys. So we had Travis Hunter, we had Jimmy Horn Jr., we had
LaJohntay Wester.
and
Oh, Will Shepherd. Yeah.
Will
Sorry.
Shepherd. Thank
Took
you.
me a second there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's got a lot of
Everybody's screaming it out in the chat now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, too old. We don't have anybody. We need young Will in here to balance out the age. But yeah, Will. I think he's got a lot of Will Shepherd in him, but I think he's got more speed and athleticism as well. So,
he kind of reminds me of Jordan Tyson, actually.
Yeah, a little
Joseph
bit.
Williams
Yeah,
does.
yeah. I mean, that's. I don't know. I was watching Jordan Tyson yesterday and thinking about him and Chase Sowell, and it's like, it sure would be nice to have those two cats back this year.
It'd be nice if we respected Chase Sowell at Folsom Field too. That was kind of an ugly situation there.
I don't like to hang the stupidity of one idiot on a whole fan
That's
base.
true.
I think that everybody else was good to him, and I think, like his father said, that things went well. And so, that kid steal a helmet, you're likely to get knocked out, bro. But I think Joseph Williams for sure. I keep waiting. Omari and Miller had that big play, and if he gets more consistent, he's also going to be a guy that every game can do something. But another guy I think to watch for in the second half is Quentin Gibson. For some reason, he feels to me like he's like a firecracker with the fuse lit. Sooner or later it's going to go boom and blow somebody's fingers off. But
and he was one of the stars of that scrimmage they did recently, which I don't know. Just because Coach Prime said in the team meeting that this will be good film for some guys when you hit the portal didn't mean that it was an actual transfer scrimmage. They weren't like telling these guys that you have to transfer. So I saw there's a lot of confusion out there over that.
Yeah. The actual quote was, "I know some of you guys are going to go."
Yeah.
So which is not that all of you are going to go or that I expect you to go. And I think he said something about, I know some of you are already reaching out. So, I keep track of who's doing what. But I think that a lot of guys in that wide receiver room, Draylon Miller comes back and gets healthy. Amari Miller takes the next step, figure out a way to use Sincere Brown. A guy who really came on the last couple of games was Terrell Timmons. If you want to talk about guys. So there's another.
Yeah, he missed the last game with an injury. So hopefully he'll be back after the bye week. But yeah, he was hurt, and then he got back in the mix slowly and was starting to play really well, and then got dinged up again.
And who else based on Iowa State looks like he's about ready to bust out is Dallin Hayden.
Yeah.
And I still thought, Simeon Price was our best running back early on. So we get him and DeKalen Taylor back, we could have a heck of a running back room.
Yeah. William, you are a fountain of youth with your football knowledge, Ancient One said.
I'm a fountain of old age or something.
Yeah, those are a lot of the names. Anybody else? Larry Johnson's a guy that's kind of started to come into his own on the right side of that line.
Yes, he was having struggles early on, but he's really picked up his game, not getting beat on the outside. I think he's getting his technique kind of nailed down a little bit. And I got to say again, I think I said this last week, that three-headed coaching monster, if you want to call it that, on the offensive line, those guys are doing a hell of a job, man, because I watched that offensive line. Their technique is beautiful, both the inside and the outside guys, a guy, since we're talking about the offensive line, I hope we get, I think if we were winning more games, Jordan Seaton would be getting the kind of notice that he deserves. He saw somebody's preseason All-America, mid-season All-America team, but if there's two better tackles than him in the country, I'd like to see him, because that guy, even in his Pro Football Focus, has got him as the top pass protection tackle in the country.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it really helps going down the stretch. You're 5-0 linemen. Now injuries can happen, but you've got a good backup at either interior or tackle. Center-wise, maybe you'd be a little worried if Zarian goes down for an extended period of time, just because they don't have another guy that has a ton of game experience at that position.
Cooper Lovelace has
he's got some, just not a ton. I think it was only a couple games he's played center. Yeah,
but at a high level though. He played center against that Michigan defensive line, which was maybe the best defensive line in the country last year. So, he's seen big bad dudes in the middle at the very least. It's I think he's getting a lot of good playing time, but it's not the same being a tight end as it is, 3 inches from a 330-pound nose tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into another segment here on the other side of this ad. Is your business growing but not quite ready for a full-time CFO? McCaulay Capital offers fractional CFO services for companies doing more than $3 million in annual revenue. You get expert financial leadership without the full cost. Learn more about how you can improve your business's profitability and cash management at McCauleyCapital.com. If you know Boulder, you know the Hungry Toad. We've been serving this town since 1991, long before the lines on Pearl Street. Just north of campus, we're your local British pub with proper fish and chips, quality burgers, a scratch kitchen, real English cask ale, and no tourist fluff. We support CU football, women's soccer, and the loyal fans who keep it local. The Hungry Toad, Boulder born, Buffs proud. All right, we're going to be at the Hungry Toad on Wednesday, right?
Or Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday, isn't it? Or
Tuesday.
Yeah, one of those days.
I think it's Wednesday. We'll touch base after this. We'll figure it out. But I'm looking forward to getting to the Hungry Toad. Hanson Rada, he's over in Spain, so we're not going to get a chance to catch up with him. But his staff is always so friendly and welcoming to us. So that should be fun. And I actually get to hand off some swag from our other sponsor, Taco Bell, to you.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to getting that to you. You can wear. It looks like you got some BuffStampede.com gear on today. I like repping the side. I like it. And then next week you can rep Jordan Seaton because I got a double XL coming your way.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. It'd be good to see you up there. Get up to Boulder. Check things
Ancient
out.
Ancient One asked, why isn't Jaheim Otis dominating like we expected?
I think he had a little bit of injury issues. I think in those first couple of games, I thought he was. I thought he really looked good. And I don't know what the injury stuff was, but I think he missed a couple of games, didn't he?
He was banged up early on. He missed some time during camp as well. And this is coming off last fall when he got hurt at Alabama and then ended up sitting out most of the season. So there was definitely some rust to work off. And the fact that he couldn't stay healthy on the practice fields, I think, was part of it. This staff really does. If you get hurt, you got to work your way back. Even Tawfiq Byard had to work his way back after he got banged up. So
I would also say that Anquan Barnes has been everything we expected, I think, so far this year, and Amari McNeil's been really good. So you get a little banged up as Jaheim Otis. I don't think he has quite developed the work ethic those two has, which is what's going to be his challenge moving forward. But he has been very dominant at times out there. I've seen him. I can't remember what game. I remember what he was very clearly. Might have been Georgia Tech. He was knocking somebody back in the backfield pretty regularly. So I think it's there for him. I think he had some injury issues, was a little banged up, and he needs to learn the work ethic that Amari and Anquan already have. But I think it's still there for him. He's not a disappointment. He just has been hurt a little bit.
Yeah. We talked about the schedule a little bit. What do you see as their odds for bowl eligibility at this point, sitting at 2-3 at the bye week?
Well, I think it's pretty good. I think there's three. I think we got 5 teams left. I think 2 of them are really darn good, and I think that 3 of them are not. I think Utah playing BYU yesterday had the exact same score we did, lost by the same score we did to BYU. It's always hard to tell what you can take out of those rivalry games. But I watched them, and I think Utah is certainly beatable. I think that Arizona is really bad. I think West Virginia is really bad. I think Kansas State, hard to say. You look at the schedule, and Kansas State hasn't beat anybody. So I think those teams are certainly beatable. Well, I think all 5 are beatable. But ASU beating Texas Tech yesterday was an eye opener. So they're a for real team. I think, but I think we got. It always seems to happen that we end up beating somebody we shouldn't and losing to someone we shouldn't lose to. So I don't know how to play out, but I think we'll get those 3 wins. We'll find out a lot this week.
Big Berna wrote, I'm very critical of Coach Hart since Jackson State, but lately I've been humbled. Jeremiah Brown and Myers are both playing well. Brown is actually getting better the more he plays. This is a position group when you talk about the schedule coming up. If they can get performances like they got out of Jeremiah Brown against Iowa State, I think that Reggie Hughes is coming along, maybe not as quickly as we wanted, but yeah, they've got some playmakers there. Sean Myers has been more of a situational guy, but he's definitely had some moments in there. If that group plays well, that might be the determining factor if this is a bowl team at the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, it sort of looks like last year where those two inside linebackers just got better each week too. So I give Hart some credit for that. But I'm thrilled to see Jeremiah Brown. His game against Iowa State was top notch. I mean, it was just as impressive as a inside linebacker could be. And Sean Myers, to me, is a guy that's played a lot of football and understands the game and knows what's going to happen and runs pretty well. So, I'm kind of disappointed in Hughes and French so far, but hopefully they'll keep coming along.
Yeah. Yep. So you think they go what, 3-2 down the stretch?
I don't know. I think we win 3. I don't know. I think we might pull 4 out of there. I got to see what happens this week. Beat Utah and anything's on the table. If you beat Utah this week, they could run the table, frankly, because ASU probably looks to be the toughest of the games still remaining, based on what they did yesterday. But we get them at home, so that's a positive. So I don't know. This conference is really hard to figure. It
is.
I think if we beat Utah, I think we could get 4 wins out of this.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, after this, I have to do my Big 12 power rankings, and some weeks, man, there's not a whole lot separating like 4 from 12 on the list.
No, I was looking at Kansas State's schedule, and they're only, they don't have any quality wins. Their best win, they beat TCU. UCF's not that great. I guess beating TCU is probably their best win out there. So, and TCU's 5-2. So it's hard to say with this conference really what's going on. But I think that all 5 of these teams are clearly beatable. I think we've got talent as good as anybody in the conference this year. So, do we figure some things out with coaching and get that offense clicking a little better?
Is it a good or a bad thing for CU that Utah's coming off a heartbreaking loss to their true rival?
I don't know. I don't know how much that plays. I wonder if they weren't looking past. Let's see, where did they go here? Because last week, so they lost to BYU. And they beat Arizona State, so that's pretty impressive. But I don't know how much that plays in to their preparation. I think it takes a lot of steam out of you. They probably were up for that game, and it was close. And so if they have a hangover in practice and don't get prepared for us, they could really pay the price. And plus, that was a pretty physical game yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
People were slamming into each other and getting hurt and whatever. So I don't know how that plays out.
It sounds like this could potentially be Kyle Whittingham's last season there. They've had a coach in waiting for a little while now. It sounds like this might be it for him, and it might be a good time. The program is still very solid ground right now, but it just seems like they kind of need to step into that next era at some point soon.
Yeah, and I think he's an excellent coach, an outstanding coach, but they're not the coach. They're not the team they were a few years ago that we weren't going to beat them no matter what.
Yeah.
Last year was a pretty big surprise, and I don't think they've really come back fully from that. So it might be time for them to move into the new era. But I think he's one of those coaches that proves what I'm always saying, that coaching matters. That he's always got more out of his talent than he has, than other coaches do. I mean, those teams, those 11 win teams and such, were not more talented than other teams. They just played better.
Yeah. I mean, it has definitely helped having that Polynesian pipeline right there in Salt Lake City. That's one of the advantages that Utah's had over from a recruiting standpoint over Colorado, which uh, you maybe want to offer a handful of kids every year in Colorado, whereas Utah, you've got just a really strong pipeline and guys that just dominate in the trenches, and that's been kind of their the recipe for success dating back to when Urban Meyer was there.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of those early teams under this coach, they were defined by those big NFL nose tackles they had that were just unblocked. I can't remember any of their names off the top of my head right now, but some of those guys were just monsters, and so that
You need a pronunciation guide if you're
yeah,
going to do it.
yeah. But they've always been a team under him that is very disciplined and very fundamentally sound, and I think that makes a big difference at this level. Because kids don't come out of high school knowing how to play this game; they have to be taught. So I don't know. So I think they're a tough team, but I think that I'm not impressed with Arizona or West Virginia or Kansas State. And Arizona State looks to me to again possibly be the best team in the conference.
That was an entertaining game yesterday between Arizona State and Texas Tech, and
well, they were really knocking the hell out of each other too. That was a physical game. That was a fun game to watch. I was kind of going back and forth. It's like I hate to look. I hate to think positive about Texas Tech, given all of our history with them and the way they're trying to buy themselves. They're Oregon #2, trying to buy themselves something that they don't deserve. But at the same time, I was like, hey, beat these guys up for us.
Yeah, exactly. Big Mike with the super chat. He said, always look forward to the show after church. Appreciate you, Big Mike. Hope it was a good service today.
I think Mike also mentioned something. He was talking about Sean Myers being stout against the run and taking good angles, and I agree with him. I think Sean Myers is a guy that's played a lot of inside linebacker and really understands the game, which makes a big darn difference. Plus he's athletic, and if you understand the game and take good angles and you can run, you can do a lot of damage against other teams.
What else do you want to see out of this football team the next 5 weeks, aside from just wins? Is there something that on either side of the ball you kind of want to see show itself as you look to the future and kind of solidifying what they have going into 2026?
Well, we have such gifts at wide receiver and running back. I'd like to see a more coherent offense. I'd like to see more of what we saw in the second half against Iowa State with better play calling. But you know what? You've got these big 5 behemoths up front, man. Let these dudes line up and maul people and just keep handing the ball off to these running backs, because we got some guys that have shown they can do something with the ball. Let's keep doing it. Let's beat the hell out of teams. Let's eat up the clock, give our defense a break, and I don't want to see any more of this, look like we're picking things out of a hat kind of a thing. Let's coordinate this offense and make it work. I don't know. I'd like to see a running back in 100 yards and really dominate some of these teams.
Well, one thing I will say that has me optimistic, and I've said this from the jump, is that I feel like Colorado's going to be playing its best football in November because of the depth that they've built in this program. And there's no doubt that that injury report is pretty lengthy. Some of the guys on that list are not real big factors, but you want to get back Carter Stoutmeyer and Arden Walker, obviously some of those key guys that were out the last game. But it's really only 4 or 5 of those guys that are big impact guys on that list. You get a couple of them back, and I really do feel like other teams, like you mentioned, Utah, BYU yesterday was a physical football game. They're going to have some injuries going into next week's game. I feel like Colorado, because of what they did from a depth standpoint, has set themselves up to have a pretty good finish to the season.
Yeah, and I think we got, injuries really hurt the defensive tackle position, but then we found our two top guys there with Amari McNeil and Anquan Barnes, and I think Brandon Davis Swain's another guy who might really pop out in the last half of the season as he starts to get his technique better and things of that nature. But maybe, I don't know if Carter or Coleman are coming back, or Thomas, but getting a few more guys there could make a difference. Arden Walker certainly would make a big difference. Keaton Wade seems to be getting better at certain aspects of the game, and Quincy Wiggins has been a bit of a disappointment, but he's still out there playing. So, we'll see what happens with him. But I think that depth is going to make a big difference. Especially we've found some guys, the two freshman defensive ends, Davis Swain is a surprise, if we can keep developing some of those guys. I think that what we saw from Ivan Yates was a very positive development against Iowa State. Let's see if we can keep that up.
Yeah, and I'm curious to get an update on RJ Johnson because he made some mistakes early, but I thought going into the season he was their second best cornerback on the roster. So we'll see if he gets back in the mix. But Yates was a surprise because he doesn't have that typical size that we see out of corners that play in Coach Mathis's defense here the last 3 years. But you saw a level of effort out of him that I thought was better than some other guys we've seen at that position this year.
Right, and at some point you got to put aside the numbers and let guys play that got heart and can play. I mean, it's fine to get caught up in everybody having the perfect height and speed and all that stuff, but guys that can play need to be on the field, regardless of what their size is or anything else. We've had some guys that were outstanding defensive backs at Colorado that were not all that big. So you got to play the guy that's getting the job done. And I'm hopeful that cornerback room is coming along, and some of those guys will get Johnson back, and some of those guys can really finish. I thought Ben Finiseth had his best game against Iowa State. So I don't know. There's positives. I think Tawfiq Bayard really established himself on a larger level with his play in the first half of the season. It'd be interesting to see what he does moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything else you want to talk about before we sign off, William? It's going to be a shorter show. Obviously, we don't have a full football game to recap. But any other thoughts? I will say about going out to Utah, that is one of the easiest road trips to go cover. Obviously, it's close to Denver. The airport always seems to be empty. You can get anywhere in Salt Lake City within like 15 minutes. And actually, it's kind of an underrated food city. A lot of the restaurants that I've tried in Salt Lake have actually been pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think that's a fun place to go. I mean, I think I don't know if we have a rivalry with them yet, but it's going to be a huge game, I think. Big Mike just points out that Quincy Wiggins didn't start playing football till the 11th grade, so he's a guy that with more playing time will just get better and better. But I don't know. I think this Utah game will tell us a lot about this team. We're still waiting for that breakout game like against UCF last year. Maybe this is it. I don't know.
We got another super chat here from Dano. Adam, get Mr. Gardner a beer on the tote on me. I enjoy your content. Thank you, Dano.
Well, I can have a beer during the day now, thank the Lord. So we'll do that.
Well, and I think Hanson's going to hook us up. So maybe we'll get you another. You can double fist. Two beers at the same time. How's that sound?
Yeah. Well, then I might have to get a room up there. So
That's true. Yeah. Got to be careful about that. But what were you going to order on? I think I have it down as Wednesday on my calendar, so hopefully that works for you.
No, it's fine with me either way. But
okay.
Hard to go wrong with that big burger.
Okay.
Yeah. Have to see that menu again, but I think it'll be fun to be up there, get back to Boulder, and see what's happening.
Yeah. All right. Well, next week we will have a game to recap. Man, that's going to be. I'm going to be groggy for that one. It's going to be another 8:15 kick. Oh man. But I don't know. The good thing is I don't drink a ton of caffeine, so when I need a boost, I can grab some coffee or an energy drink and kind of find a way to get through the day. So that's going to be my plan for next Sunday's show.
Is that one you drive to or you fly to?
I've done both, but it's pretty darn cheap to fly out there. So when Southwest has their day where they do like 50% off flights, I'll like book all my travel for the entire year. And it was, I think, like under 200 round trip. So you can't beat that. I would have spent that in gas money getting out there. So
food along the way and everything else. So,
I will say that the actual Salt Lake is disappointing. There's no point in actually going out to see that. I like to sometimes when I go on the road to cover games, find a good like area to go running. find like a good river or lake or something. And I'm like, well, the city's named after this Salt Lake. So I'm going to take my rental car out there and try to find some path. Number one, it just stinks out there because of all the salt. It's actually kind of disgusting, and
no,
it's all shallow everywhere. It's not.
It's not your happy, it's not Grand Lake or anything like that where it's nice.
No,
it's blue and beautiful. It's a piece of crap.
I'm like, I wouldn't name my city after it if it's that bad of a situation. They got to come up with a different name.
I imagine you're coming across country in a covered wagon. It's been months, and you get there and you're like, hey, here's a big lake, and then you go down and taste it, and you're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing's just 100 years away from being a salt flat. So
Yeah.
Then they'll have to change their city name to Salt Flat City.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I think that officially means we've run through all the topics. We're breaking down the Salt Lake. So, all right. Appreciate you, William, as always, and I appreciate everybody out there for tuning in. In case you haven't heard, CU Athletics is teaming up with Taco Bell this season, launching the first ever $7 Buffs box, which is available at participating Colorado Taco Bell locations. What's in the Buffs box? A lot of great stuff. You get 4 Taco Bell classics, a cheesy gordita crunch, a beefy 5-layer burrito, a Doritos Locos Tacos, cinnamon twists, and the meal comes with a signature Buffs collectible cup featuring either Julian Juju Lewis, Jordan Seaton, Draylon Miller, or Quentin Gibson. And this isn't just about the food. Every single CU touchdown this year means more than points. Taco Bell will donate $1,000 for every Buffs touchdown to the Golden Buffalo Scholarship Fund. Nothing better than crushing a Buffs box while watching the Buffs light up the scoreboard. Live Moss.